still rolling.
Yeah, you can see it buffering, right? There we are. Poonam has left the room. Where are you? Hello? Is anyone online? Is anyone online? So if you're online and if you can hear us, can I request you to just put a yes in the chat, please? Because I can see there are 5 people who've already joined in at the moment, and I can see more people joining in. So can I get a yes in the chat box?
Hey.
Hear us. Hi, Poonam.
Hi, sorry. As with the most technical things, there's always some issues here. Hi, Thanj. Oh, great. We're starting to get some people say hello, which is brilliant. We're just going to give a little bit of time just to get people here. Oh, hi, Levent. Oh, some great people coming saying hello. Hello. We can see your messages, so that's brilliant.
Hi, Supriya. I can see you're online also.
It's really great.
People online. Tanj, hello. How are you doing?
So it would be great if you can tell us if you can see us okay and if you can see the presentation okay. We'll do a little orientation in a little while, but it's just to make sure that you can see everything.
Yeah. So I can see a few yeses. So I'm assuming that people can actually hear us because I can see a few yeses. And yeah, a few people saying hi. So hello to everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And we promise to make it worth your while, isn't it, Poonam?
Absolutely. Hi, Trisha. It's lovely to have you back here. Brilliant. We'll just give it another minute and then we'll move on.
Okay, so I think Tanj is saying you cannot see or hear us, right?
Yeah. We cannot see you or hear you, yes, but you can chat with us through the chat box, and then we'll do a little orientation just to make sure that everybody is really clear as we move forward.
Yes, that's correct. So, sorry. So the thing is, like we said, we obviously want to make sure that we respect everybody's time, and so we want to we're going to try and keep it very much focused on the content and answering people's questions at the end. So I think, like Poonam said, we'll take you through some what could you expect, your expectations kind of thing a little bit later. I think we have a few more people joining, and as I can see, the numbers are increasing. So we give it a couple of minutes.
Yes. Thank you for everyone who's already made it on time. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, and a big thank you for respecting time. So,
brilliant.
All right. Okay, so I can see more people joining in.
Yes, they're coming.
Okay, it's okay. So people are still saying it's okay. We can hear you. Yes, yes, yes. Hi,
yeah.
hi.
Lots of hellos. I love the engagement so far. This is brilliant.
Yes, it is. So good stuff. Hi from RAC, Poonam. Can you see everything? So, okay. So you seem to be disappearing and popping back off and on, off and on. Why is that? I wanted to know.
I really don't know. So we'll run with it and we'll see. So I would say, hello, everyone. Please forgive me. I'll try my best to catch back up with everything. So I think let's just move on. It's got some people as we go. And then as people join us, we'll get them into the same side as everyone else. Brilliant. So everyone, welcome to Strategic People Insights on how to navigate the paradigm shift. Really great to have you with us and giving your hour to us today. As promised, what we'd really like to do is just give you a bit of an orientation of Webinar Jam. Please do chat with us. If you've been on Webinar Jam before, let us know. It would be great to know if there's any experts in the room. But just a couple of bits that we thought would be helpful, because we've all been on webinars, haven't we, Rosie, where we've just felt so confused, we're not very clear on what's going on. So a couple of things. So you're already using the chat box, so please share your thoughts with us. We will be keeping a track of what you're saying to us, and we do really want this to be something that is engaging with you, so we will want to hear you what you're saying. We'll cover most of the questions at the end, just to ensure that we kind of cover everything on time. If you're having any technical issues, please just note it in the chat. if at some point you stop hearing us, just let us know. And then there is a refresh button on the top of your browser. It's sort of a little red thing. If you just press that to refresh, hopefully that should have you back with us. We will be using polls and Mentimeter. Don't worry, we will guide you through so that you're with us the whole way. And there are other people there, even though you may not be able to see them, they are here. And Ferozi and I will do our best to make sure that we try and keep people involved. Anything there for you, Ferozi?
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight one more thing, that we are recording this session. So for those who would like to, review it later, we'd share a link with you, and then you can actually, go through, some of the content or most of the content, whatever you'd like. So yeah, it's a recorded session, and we'll probably make it available to all of you. So yeah, stay with us, stay tuned. If you log off for whatever reason, because it's technology, please feel free to log back in. I think all of you have your login IDs and your links. And I think the same for us, Poonam. If we end up logging out, then we probably log back in and the other person will hold the fort, as we say, yeah. Right?
100%. Brilliant. So we'll move on and kickstart. A little bit about us. So Ferozi, you want to take the floor?
Yeah, thank you so much, Poonam. So yeah, so that's me. I am basically an entrepreneur. I'm also the owner of 3 organizations. I run 3 businesses, 3 different businesses, from training and learning and development to cybersecurity to social media marketing and digital marketing. And I think I've been in the forefront longer than even COVID has existed. So I think today the objective is for us to bring our expertise to all of you and also share with each other. So that's a little bit of me. I work with a lot of corporates one-on-one, when it comes to a high-level kind of mentoring coaching for C-suites. And then obviously I spend a lot of time with corporates, in the learning and development side, offering holistic solutions. So it's not just training, it's just, getting the performance updated, the productivity higher, increase in ROI, all of that, through people, through learning, through talent, through all of that. So that's a little bit about me, and over to you, Poonam.
Brilliant. So hi, everyone. Some already know me, so I will keep it a little short. So I am the managing director of ThinkHack Consulting. I am an organizational psychologist. So let me just clear this up. Firstly, I do not treat OCD, if that's what you have, and I do not organize people's wardrobes. What I do is try to make organizations function well. ThinkHack as a business looks at people and technology solutions. So we're very much around strategic consulting, executive coaching, leadership development. And really what we want to do at ThinkHack is bring things back to basics. Really genuinely believe that things can be simpler than they are. And so really, really passionate about people. So
it's a people's industry.
It is. And I think we've got peoples here. So kickstart, first poll of the day. I am going to share my screen. So we're going to use Mentimeter. So what I would really like everybody to do is, if you can see the screen, brilliant. Can I ask you all to go on menti.com and use the code that's visible over there? So that's 327804. If you can just drop a note on chat if that's something you've got up and you can see on your mobile phone devices, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, so I think what you need to do is just maybe through your mobile or through your desktop, just log into www.menti.com. And once you're there, it will request you for a code. And I think you can see the code here on the screen, the top of the screen, that you need to enter. And then, it'll take you to this question as to what do you want to take away from today. So we'd like to have your thoughts on what is it that brought you to the session. What do you hope to take away? What do you hope to, enhance, learn, whatever it might be. So I think we need to give them a little time because they'll have to log in, they'll have to answer, and I think there's a time lapse, right?
Yes, exactly. So can we just make sure that everybody's got Mentimeter up and got this question up? So what we'd really like to know today is, what is it that you would really like from today? Ooh, so we've got some things
Nice.
coming up.
Skills, practical advice. I like that.
Ooh, nice. Pivoting people strategy. Lovely.
Very good.
We'll definitely be covering that, won't we, Firozi?
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to. Tanj says we're done.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Agility.
And actually, it's a good idea. Oh, brilliant. This is great.
Yeah.
So for those who may have just joined us, we're just doing a quick poll just to better understand what it is that you want from today. So if you please go to menti.com and use the code above. I've highlighted it there. Oh, or design organizational structures. Nice. New ideas to help clients. That's brilliant.
Good, yes. Practical advice.
Practical advice. Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant. Oh, we've got things coming in. Clearly, there's a big organizational focus there that seems to be quite popular. This foggy world. Oh, I love that. I'd like to know what that means a little more. If you want to put it in the chat, that would be great. We'll give it just a couple of more seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, feel free to write more than one answer. It's okay, because I'm sure a lot of you have, ideas in your mind that you would like to share, like to know about, and probably it could be more than one. So there's no restriction or limitation on the number of answers that you can put in, because it's all about learning and growing, right?
Well, exactly.
I like
Brilliant.
this idea of navigates.
So we'll move back to the presentation. So I think this is really helpful because it really is actually things that we will be covering today. So we'll move on to that next. Thank you very much for everyone for sharing that.
So there we are.
It's like walking through the fog these days.
So there we are.
Ah, yes. Oh, I love that explanation, by the way.
So I think what we've done is we've just covered what you want to take away from today's session, and thank you so much for those insights. What we'd like to do is we'd like to move forward now on, based on your expectation, what is it that we're actually going to be covering? So it's pretty much aligned to what we had in mind, because having worked with corporates and C-suites, we probably understand a little bit about what the current requirement and need is. So a little bit about productivity, and I think as we all agree that it was an ever-changing world, but I think COVID has just asked, or rather pushed us in looking at areas that we probably haven't focused on previously. So productivity is a lot, is interrelated to performance. And I think the initial pre-COVID days, performance was very driven through ROI, finance, sales. It was all a very financial focus that most organizations had. But I think COVID has taught people or organizations and firms to look at people, health, well-being, which also is a big contributing factor to productivity and performance of your staff. So I think there's been a massive shift in that area as far as corporates are concerned. And I think a lot of corporates have started to jump on the bandwagon and have started to amend things. But it's about how far are you to catching up on those areas. So that's really something that I think a lot of corporates are looking at, and probably you would like to look at if you are running a business. But also then how does that well-being and impact your ROI? So it's about, and we're going to share a few statistics on organizations that are currently struggling because they probably didn't have the right strategy in place, or they didn't have the right approach in place, or resilience to change. So I think a lot of ROI is also, they always say that when going gets tough, the tough get going, right? So it's how resilient are you, or how resilient have you built your business that you can actually cope with these surprises or shocks, that come up from the industry or from the economy. So that's something that we're going to be touching upon later. And then we're going to talk about innovation and digitization, because I think that's been the key focus in the last, 3-4 months. I think the whole world has gone online, and I think digitization was happening, but I think it was just taking its own pace. But I think COVID has actually pushed organizations to move into digitization faster than expected. So we're going to be touching up a little bit upon creativity, innovation, digitization. How is it impacting your business, and how could you actually overcome those challenges? So, Puram, you want to continue further and talk a little bit more about the other areas?
No, I think you've really talked about some great points. I think it's all about how do we navigate? I mean, those puzzles for me is how do we navigate what feels like a very messy world? It's going to require a little bit of out of box thinking. It's going to require us to really think about what this box even looks like. How do we start to use technology to support us? How do we marry digital skill set with a people skill set? So that is kind of what's going to be the focus of today.
Awesome. Okay, so
we have a poll.
We have a poll, and that's the next poll for all of you to answer. You don't need to go anywhere. I think the poll is up here. So my next question to everybody is,
by the way, can you see the poll? We've published it. I'll just check.
Oh yeah, can people see the poll? Because
there should be a poll on the chat side. There should be a second sort of tab there.
So the polling question that we'd like to now present is COVID-19. Would you as a business see it as an obstacle or as an opportunity? So we've given to 100% opportunity.
We've got some great people who are really going to make the most of
positive mindset. Yeah,
brilliant.
Mindset. Excellent. So, all right. So, so the reason we've included, and I think Poonam and I debated a little bit on, whether we should include this question as a part of the poll or not. The reason we decided to include it is because it's all about mindset, right? So a lot of people see COVID or the recession, they call it COVID recession because they feel that there have been a lot of challenges and, maybe some businesses have slowed down, maybe some have gone out of business, whatever it is. But I think on hindsight, if you have a resilience towards this kind of, industry norms or changes, I think there are lots of opportunities. So some industries are flourishing. As you can see, the pharmaceutical industry is flourishing, the health and well-being industry is flourishing, the digital industries are flourishing, the e-commerce is flourishing at the moment. So we're going to talk about a few examples later, but we're really, really happy to see that most people saw it as an opportunity and not as an obstacle, because I think that just shows as to how, as business owners, you would actually be able to drive your business forward, right? Rather than getting hindered or, seeing it as a barrier to move forward. So Poonam, do you want to add something?
No, I think that's great. And I think just moving on, I think this slide sort of represents it for me, to be honest, Firozi, that the fact that it's happening, whether we like it or we don't like it, it's happening. So it's a little bit about accepting the change and thinking about what we can do in our capacity, whether we're independent, whether we're working in our organization, whether we're leading organizations, to really think about how we help each other through this change.
Yeah, there's something I'd like to add here. So I look at this particular change or this slide as a recovery phase. So I believe that everything that comes down has to go up, right? So I just see, and this slide is a perfect demonstration of anything that is dried and, finished and old always has something new coming up, right? And so COVID is over. I think a lot of people were talking about the new normal. I think we're already in the new normal. I think this is a recovery phase. A lot of businesses are recovering. And so some of the strategies that we're going to share today later in this presentation is based on our experience of working with organizations and with corporates, what has really worked for some large organizations and has helped them overcome these issues and challenges, and how they have not just survived, but how are they thriving in this new normal or in the recovery phase. So those are some of the strategies that we're going to be bringing together towards the end of this presentation as experts, and requesting you to share your expertise too. Yeah.
Yes, that's a really good point. And I would say for those who are listening to us, please do chat with us. We are keeping an eye on it. Between Firozi and I, we are making sure that we're listening. So if you have insights, if something we've shared resonates with you, or if you don't agree with what we've shared, then absolutely, we want to hear from you.
Okay, so I have something to add on. So the person who said in the poll, it's like walking through fog these days. That analogy helps clients. So that's what the person has replied. So thank you so much, Trisha, for replying. So reason for change, and I when I work with corporates, one of the things I think we always discuss is that change is inevitable. It's always been a part of our life. I just think some people noticed it and some didn't. But I think COVID just kind of woke people up and woke the businesses up, saying it is time to change. And I think again I go back to being able to adapt, being able to the flexibility that you have built within your business, within your culture, within your policies. I think will take you to the new normal, or to the other side. And these are just some examples of very large organizations who've probably thrived for the last 100, 150 years, has probably gotten impacted. And so the whole idea of, like Poonam said, partnering with each other, collaborating, and helping each other out of this is basically, none of us want to be there. None of us want, all our efforts to go down the drain. The many, many years of business that you've built, where you've just lost suddenly everything. So it's about how do you transition? And for me, it's always about transitioning from something old to something new, right? So there's never a good and a bad. I always say, don't be afraid to give up good for the best. Right? So if you were good, you do want to move to best. And so how do you find those areas to move to the best? Yes, Poonam, go over to you.
No, I think that's brilliant. I really like what you're saying. And I think it resonates. In some way, this is leveled the playing field for a lot of people. Big businesses that have been established for a number of years are being impacted. So it's a real opportunity to accept that it is a difficult landscape for us worldwide, globally, but there is an opportunity too, which takes me very nicely into there is hope. So, there are people who are actually thriving at this moment in time. And I think it's really important that we look at the successes that are also happening in this period. And this is kind of one of the reasons why we are here today, because we really want to share with you at least certain things that you could start doing, whether it's as an organization, whether it's as a business, whether it's as an independent person, to start making change, supporting your clients, supporting your leaders, supporting yourself to be the best that you can be. Anything there for you, Rosie?
No, I'm done. I think you've kind of very neatly covered the whole thing.
I would be really interested to know what you think as well. So please do share with us. We've got a couple of things coming through. Some people saying, we really agree, which is great. So it's nice to have a crowd that's kind of on the same page.
Yes.
Too. So I think this takes us on really very nicely to the first thing that we're going to talk about, of the three things we said we'd cover in this conversation today. So for me, and I think for Rosie and I, we've had some great discussions on this topic, haven't we? So, we hope that you do take something away. And so when I was thinking about, right, if we're in this, what I would like to say, the now normal, new normal paradigm shift, so many different words, what really is it that needs to happen? And the first thing that comes to mind, so all of the experience that I have and the work that I'm doing with clients, the conversations I'm having with a number of different businesses and sizes, is the culture. So we need to start to create a culture where the organization can flourish, and you can flourish, and the people in it can flourish. And so these are the three areas that I've highlighted and that I think should be focused on for the next 12 to 18 months would be my sort of thought on this. So the first thing is really thinking about where your culture is. So it's a real opportunity to think about, right, where am I now, and what is it that what kind of culture do I want to have? And really think about doing that in your business. How are you happy with the culture that you have today, or are you not? And the second part of this is also having a look at your vision, your mission, and revisiting your organization's purpose. Now, this is something that I know HR talks about a lot, but I think this time in COVID-19, it's actually become more important for everyone to start thinking about this. So whether you're a leader or you are in HR indeed, really starting to ask your clients, or as a coach, starting to ask your clients these questions of what is your purpose? Some good facts about millennials, 67% of millennials are now looking for working in businesses that actually have some sort of a purpose, that are having a societal impact. So it's a really, really critical factor that's going to be considered for those who are in the workforce, potentially joining the workforce, are going to make a majority of the workforce. And then the final point is kind of self-explanatory. HR really needs to be the front and center for this period. They are your connectors, as these chains are there, to really think about how you can realign, refocus, renew, reprioritize. And if you are a business that doesn't necessarily have HR because it isn't the right thing for you, then think about how you partner with external independents here in this region. There's some great platforms. I will give a shout out to Visible HR, where you can find some great independent consultants who would be willing to partner with you to help you achieve your aims. Is there anything there for you, Feruzi?
No, so I just, no, I think it's very nicely put. I think it's just, companies just need to look at holistically the entire end-to-end, the organization, the way it works, the way it used to work and the way it should be working in the future. That's it. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay. So sustainability is the key for consideration. So again, like we said, change, of course, is inevitable. It has to happen. But also sustaining the change is really, really important, because I just believe that every time I've worked with corporates, individuals are very used to being in the comfort zones. And so change is not very welcome change most times. And so it's pushed down people. So rather than a top-down approach, I think if you're looking to sustain change, a bottom-up approach, for example, might just be the right thing for you. So you do want to look at it as to how you're implementing this change and how you're sustaining the change. Is it only top-down? Is it bottom-up? Is there buy-in? Are there change agents within the organization who can drive? So it's a bit like the bell curve. You need to find your innovators who can actually support you and drive the change and then help you sustain it. So that's a little bit from me. It's more around aligning your business strategies, your policies, your people, your vision, your mindset, all of it. I think it's bringing it together as a holistic solution. And then obviously, I think the last bit is, how do you make sure that your staff are 100% engaged? Because I think this is a time when a lot of people are feeling isolated, frustrated, whatever it is, sitting at home, especially people who are extrovert by nature, who are used to, being with people. It's a massive shift for them. And that's why I think they call it a paradigm shift. So I think the thing about change is not just making the change, but also sustaining it, and how to look at doing those criteria, having those criteria in place. So Poonam, do you want to talk a little bit about this? If you want
No, I think you've covered it brilliantly. And I think the only thing I will add is we have to be realistic with the people that we work with right now, that, sustainability is key. And the criteria for working with people is affordability and liquidity. Can we stay afloat or can we not? So it's really important that with the resources that you have and the resources that the businesses have, or you as a leader have, that you really think about where they go. And I think some of these points that were raised here is really just to think about where they go. And we've, from our experiences and the client that we work with, these are the kind of things that we've really thought about as critical to sustain during this period.
Excellent. All right.
So we're going to move into another poll here. I'll share my screen with everyone again. So back onto Mentimeter. Hopefully you haven't shut it off, but if you have, no worries. We'll give you a minute to join back on. We're going to now look at, so we know what we have to do. We know that the holistic review needs to happen. We need to look at the culture. So now we need to understand really, what are the skills that we need? What are the leadership skills that are needed to support this shift? And I think we've probably got some great expertise of people who've joined us today. So I'd really love to hear from you on what do you think are the critical skills needed for this paradigm shift? So please, again, go ahead, share your thoughts with us. And we'll give you a minute. Oh, we've got one up. So is everybody opened up Mentimeter? Can you see the question? Oh, EI, empathy, head and heart leadership. Love that. Absolutely agree. Some really great points there.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Feruzi, about this? Very critical question, right?
Yeah, it's really, really critical. So I'm just waiting for people to give me their views, and then I think we can conclude with our experience with our clients as to what do we think.
It's coming in. Brilliant. Positivity, creativity. Excellent. Oh, I'm loving this. This is excellent.
Resilience. So somebody just said what I was thinking, resilience. And I think so I'm all in for building a resilient culture, right? And yeah.
100%.
So yeah, it's also, I think, let's see what others are talking about. I love positivity. I love
Yes.
I think it just enhances engagements, staff engagement and staff productivity. Um, nice. What do you think?
Brilliant.
What do you think is, because you work with a lot of C-suite also and you do a lot of mentoring and coaching. So what do you think are the critical skills?
Oh, well, I'll be sharing all in a little while, but actually what sticks out to me is EI, communication. I think we've got a really great group here that have got some really great thoughts and ideas. So I'm going to turn my screen off. So Firozi, if you're okay to bring up the
Slides.
Yes, please. Let me know when you're ready. If you do have any other thoughts, please do share. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So is that the one? Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
So this was the question, and I mean, this is something that Firozi and I have drawn on from our experience, from our work that we've done, and also research. So actually, I have a question here for you. I'm not going to do a poll. I just want you to write in the chat box, are there any surprises here? Is there any particular skill here?
I didn't catch that.
That's my Siri, who doesn't understand. That really sticks out for you. That really does stick out for you. You may not have considered it, or you may have considered it. So please do write in the chat. Tell us if there's any surprises or anything that you particularly
any of these that I think resonate with you or your organization or the culture of your organization. So this is all about how do we share our experiences and knowledge and take our businesses to the next level, right? So all of you are experts, all of you are seniors over here. So maybe you want to share something that, you know, works for you, hasn't worked for you, something that's, you know, really resonates with you or doesn't. And we're happy to be here. We're happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Brilliant. So while that's going in, Firozi, which ones are sticking out for you then?
So
tell us a little about what we mean by some of these.
Yeah. So vulnerability. So I think it came up in the previous poll also. So I think a little bit about vulnerability. I think it's really good, but the no surprises. So somebody said no surprises. All needed.
Great. That's great news.
Yeah. All needed for the new era. But I think what sticks out for me is more about vulnerability, because I think COVID has just shown a lot of firms how vulnerable they are. Whether it's to digitization, it's to automation, it's to security, even cybersecurity, for example, or even leaders, right? How vulnerable it's made leaders, because there's a lot of fear in people, and so a lot of leaders would like to be in control, and would like to show their teams that I know it all, and I know what the future holds, and I know what I can tell you what can happen next, but you really can't. So I think it's nice sometimes to let your team see the humane side of you. And if you don't know, you don't know. It's nice to let them know that, we are all muddling through it together. So it just brings, I think, the team together. So I think vulnerability for me is something very, very critical. And if I may just take a couple of extra minutes to share my example. So before I became an entrepreneur, I was working with Standard Chartered Bank, and I was heading the role as a regional head. And there was a change of management, and my team was really uncomfortable. They didn't know what was happening, and none of us knew, because it was happening at a very high level. So it just helped me to tell them that, look, till it's all sorted, let's work together, let's continue working, whatever we need to do, and just, let's face it together. And I think that just brought my team together. So please share your experiences in the chat if you think it has worked for you. And, if something like that has been experienced, in your organization, you've experienced it. Is there something you'd like to talk about, Poonam?
Well, actually, it's a little bit biased, because there's so much news, right? There's so much information that we're flooded in around all the skills that we need. And it could almost feel like we need every skill that's out there. So I would say give yourself a break and really think about the skills that would really work for you, and give yourself permission to really focus on the skills that you have, and also the skills that you like to develop. So for me, communication, it feels critical right now, because as a leader, it's really important that you're having conversations with your staff in a clear way, using facts. And then I think closely linked to communication is candor. Now, I don't know how many are familiar with that. For me, candor is honesty with clarity. So it's an opportunity to really say things how they are. Now, let's be fully honest here. We're going to all have to make decisions. Businesses are going to have to make decisions. Leaders are going to have to make decisions that are going to be tough. But that doesn't mean that you can't be honest and that you can't share what really is happening. So I think there's a lot of research that suggests that if you're, at least with the known, if people know, then they can cope with the change a lot better. So I think that's something to really think about. And I think the other one that really sticks to me, I think they kind of go together, is empathy and listening. So for me, empathy is all about really understanding and the ability to listen effectively. Now, this isn't something that comes naturally to everyone. Now, I work with a lot of CEOs who say to me that I'm empathetic, I know what it means, I listen. But do they really listen? That's usually the conversation that we end up having, and it's quite evident that they don't. So for me, empathy and listening actively, it's really important. So my take home for listening, it's all about changing the mode from listening to respond to listening to understand. And I think that's the one thing that people really need to change. And as leaders, it's critical. Really important that you become closer to your staff, that you start putting them at the center, and that you understand that they are going to be the ones that's going to help you sustain your ship.
Yeah. And I think a little bit that I'd like to talk about is on collaboration. So I think again, pre-COVID, when I've worked with a lot of organizations, I've seen that there's a lot of silos that has been created, or that was created. So a lot of departments either work in silos, a lot of individuals work in silos. And if there's ever a time that people need to start collaborating, whether it's cross-functional teams, whether it's across organizations, it's across individuals, whatever it is, I think at this point of time, more than ever, I think collaboration is something that a leader should be driving to make sure that you leverage on the strengths of just not your team, but other teams to benefit the organization as a whole. So I think it's time to move beyond just me or my team, but it's time to look at the organization as a whole to see how we could collaborate together as one team, and then how do we contribute to the bigger good of the organization. So I think collaboration is a real big driver, the driver that I see at the moment, that leaders need to kind of work on and build on.
Well, yeah, exactly. And this is also a really good point there, Rosie, because what's coming to mind is macro level collaboration. So it's not just necessarily collaborating with an external supplier, but it's actually looking at organization to organization collaborations. So I would certainly say to business leaders, really think about how you can come together with others, not just in the region, internationally, to really think about how the collective force could be a lot more powerful. I mean, I'd like to say on that note, we're collaborating, aren't we? Because we really feel like there's a lot of things that we do that are complementary. So I think we're not just saying this, guys, we actually do mean it, and we really do see the power of it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Anything else from you?
No, that's it. I think we're done for this one, so we can move on then.
Brilliant. So we are now moving into the sort of final part of the webinar, and we've talked a lot about what we need to do, really looking at it from, the culture right from the beginning, then the skills that we need to have to be able to make this change. So now we're moving into the practical. What is it that needs to specifically happen?
Right. So I think we kind of touched upon it on productivity and performance, and I think that's where the human element comes in. So if you actually look at the 4 pillars that we would like to cover in this particular through the slide, is more around touching on the human element, right? So yes. When you talk about productivity and performance, it's about how are you supporting? What are the kinds of tools and techniques that you're offering? What are the kinds of trainings or learning or development that you offer your people? How are you building on the talent? How are you acquiring the talent? How are you managing the talent that you have in between? And we'll talk about it a little bit later also. But it's more around how do you encourage your team and your staff to actually go to the next level, to add value, to serve more than start to sell, for example, if they're salespeople. So I think we've moved into a world where people are looking for a lot more value. And how do you instill that as a culture within your organization, that each one is adding value, not just to the customers, not just to the management, but also in their roles, the way they're performing, are they going the extra mile? Are they proactive? Are they just doing a 9-to-5 job because they're disengaged, they're massively disengaged, they're engaged. So I think there's a lot that sits in this performance and productivity where, the clarity on the goals, like we've mentioned over here, the learning and development, the career development, whatever it is that you're offering, is that clear? Has then been communicated? Are they aware of it? Poonam, do you want to also talk about something on that, on the short-term, long-term goals?
Well, I will just actually build on what you've said, because you've said some really excellent stuff. So for me, I think, let's be fully honest, performance has gone out the window. Target setting is absolutely impossible to do, or everything is kind of up in the air. So I think it's about thinking, how do you as a business, or how do you as a partner with an organization start to create solutions that really work for your client? So one of the couple of bits here, and I'm not going to read off the slide because that's one of my pet hates, but just for ease of use, so feel free to take a copy or screenshot of this. But for me, it's all about starting to create short-term goals. So we've all heard of a number of different approaches. One of my favorites is the MSC. So what is it that I must do? What is it that I should do? And what is it that I could do? And really thinking about how you set that with your staff. So as a leader, starting to create short-term goals that starts to help people feel that they're closer to achieving, that they are actually achieving, rather than having that annual cycle that everybody dreads, nobody really remembers, and it just becomes, it's proven not to be effective. And I think people in this webinar will probably be aware of that.
Right. So, so moving to rewards, and again, because I work with a lot of large corporates myself, I've noticed that a lot of times when you talk about rewards, the first thing that comes to their mind is the financial gain, right? So we don't have the budget, we don't have the money. Why do we need to pay? We're paying them a salary, why should we reward them for doing the job? But I often think that reward has a bigger definition than just rewards, financial rewards. So it's more around recognition. It's about just, saying thank you to somebody. It's about not just giving somebody a raise or a promotion because they've been there for 5 years or 10 years. It's about encouraging people who are really contributing. So this is, I think, the time to see who your contributors are versus who are not. And then really rewarding people that, even if it's additional responsibilities, delegate them, some areas that they would love to work on, or empower them. These are all different kinds of rewards that you could actually think of creating, which really doesn't have to impact your finance or your budgets. So exactly. Do you want to talk a little bit about monetary gains and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, I think it just flows really nicely, doesn't it? So I think when we put reward, and I think the first thing everybody probably thinks is money, and I know that we've got someone here who's a reward specialist, so by no way is that the point here. I think it's about really thinking out of the box when you think of reward. So really starting to think, how do you start to recognize people and recognize the people who are really going above and beyond in your business? I think now more than ever, one of the take-homes is to be closer to the people that you work with, be closer to the people that you're partnering, and really start to understand, what is it that's keeping them up at night? How can I help them? How is it that, I can assure them that I value them? And a lot of this is, going to require leaders to, dip into skill sets that they probably have not needed to. So I think it kind of is quite critical to start thinking about being realistic and understanding how you can reward and recognize the work that people are putting in right now.
So I think we've got a lot of engagement on this particular point, because people are saying, yes, definitely, sure, I agree. So that's good. Keep going. We'd like to see your feedback, and we're really happy to see that you are actually agreeing with all of that. But even if you don't disagree, even if you disagree, please feel free to tell us that you have your opinion, and we're happy to share that also. So I think that's fantastic. And I think, like we said, this slide is more about people, and it's about, leaving you with the food for thought as to how much of your focus or your business focus is on people. And so the next thing is on recruitment, right?
I think, exactly. Yeah. So it kind of moves very nicely, right, to people getting new people in.
Yeah. So I think in my view, because I've also worked in the recruitment industry, and I think when I work with individuals, recruitment, I think the definition is broadened. So it's more around resourcing. Today, it's more around talent, right? So how do you acquire the right talent? So it's about starting right, correct? How do you get the right talent on board? But also, if you have talent, how do you manage that talent internally so that they don't, they don't quit, they don't leave, and whatever it is. So how do you nurture talent? So I think it's a holistic piece, again, that business needs to look at. And I think if you've got talent, you really don't want to lose it. You want to nurture it. So I think I'll leave it to you to talk a little bit about, the roles and how do they need to hire, right?
Yeah.
I think
Being an organizational psychologist, a lot of people will tell you that this is your bread and butter. This is where we start. We always start at talent acquisition. So it's an area that's really close to mine. But before I get into that, I just want to acknowledge we've had some, with Banjas raised a really good point about reward, which I think will be useful for people to hear. It's about leaders needing to think out the box and thinking about reward needing to be demographically relevant as well. So I think that's a really, really good point. Definitely something that leaders really need to consider who are here today. But going back to recruitment, so I've put it there, but I'll just elaborate on it. I feel like when COVID-19 hit and, I think there was a lot of panic in the region. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were asked to, accept things that they may not have been fully signing up to. And I honestly do think that rather than shaving the fat of a business, they really cut into the muscle. So it's really leaving a lot of businesses vulnerable. So for me, it's really an opportunity to take a step back and think, right, what do I really need? What roles do I need to fulfill? And do I know where my risks are as a business? Do I know who I will be losing or leaving? So it's a real opportunity to get close to your HR, a real opportunity to get close with, if you're not, thinking about HR and you're thinking externally, really thinking about bringing someone to help you do a review of your whole process. So, that does mean thinking about digital solutions. That does mean thinking about how you make your hiring process fit you better and fit the situation that we're in better. There is a lot of research, and if you are interested, please get in touch. I'm happy to share it with you. That says that, organizations that have really gone on a sort of chopping spree are really going to be impacted quite negatively, and it could impact survival. So it's a very real situation that organizations are in, and leaders really need to take a step and become a lot more front and center in the way in which they acquire talent.
Absolutely. And I think the last pillar is the policies. So it's just something that businesses want to think about, because recently when I was talking to one of my large corporates, and they were talking about the travel policy, looking at, how do they convert the travel policy to an agile policy, because apparently they never had something called agile working or flexi working hours prior to this. So I think it's just about, in my view, because I also train on risk and compliance. And one of the things I've always noticed with organizations or with corporates is that policy is a document that generally sits in someone's desktop. However, if you try to operationalize it or you try to implement it, there are lots of real life challenges that the organization or the staff face. So I think the only thing I would like to ask people is, have a look at your policy and see, is it really operationalizable? Can you operationalize it? Can you implement it? And if you do, what are those challenges? And are you aware of those challenges? Do you help the front line with the procedures that needs to be backed up along with the policy, so that they know how to execute those policies? Are you looking at those policies and changing it? Because this is a time to, add on more digitization, accelerate actually your digitization area and stuff like that. So is your policy focused on those areas where you need to focus on now? Or is it still sitting like a good 3-year-old, 5-year-old policy in your desktop? So I think it's one of the things, because it's a guiding document, and I think a lot of people in corporates look up to a policy document for guidance. So I think if that's updated, I think it's a push in the right direction for the organization, for the businesses, and for the staff of the organization. So over to you, if you have something to share.
No, I think some really great points. I mean, how many policies have we either seen as part of it? I mean, I've had a strong and long corporate career, so I know that these policies, when they go out of date, how painful it can be as a leader to try and implement them. So I think I fully agree as a recipient and also as a creator of policies, that it's really important that they're set up correctly and reviewed more frequently than they are. So if you're, some of the leaders that we have here today, please have a look at your policies and really think about how you get them reviewed appropriately, because it is really critical right now. One of the areas I actually wanted to touch on was remote working. It's a topic that's hot, and a lot of people have been, thrusted into working from home. And there's a lot of, different people that some have liked it, some have loved it, and some have sort of felt like the gap between home and work has changed. And I think there's a lot of varied experiences. one of the things that's clear is that organizations were sort of thrusted into it and really didn't have the capability. So a lot of people were working from home from the first time and had actually no protocol around it. So it's really important to consider that. And the other thing, I guess the jury's out, and I'd welcome your thoughts, by the way. Please write to us on the chat and let me know what you think of remote working. So I'm going to share my piece, controversially or not, but I really think that this region loves to be with each other. So I think the verdict's out. I'm not fully convinced that it'll actually become a thing that organizations will do in this region. I know it's happening around the world. I know the Twitter CEO has also talked about how he can facilitate remote working. But a tip here, if as a leader that you're thinking about introducing remote working, really important to understand where your people are with remote working. Do they fully understand what it means? Have you been clear about what the expectations are? Are your managers trained? Are you clear on what that is? And finally, when you think about enforcing anything that's new, think about early adopters. Think about your piloting it in a smaller part with a few people who love working from home, and they will be your champions and they will be able to support this initiative.
I just have something else to add on the remote working piece. So because I come from a large multinational organization, and as best practices, I think it has always existed in those large organizations. And I've literally seen smaller organizations struggling to cope with remote working. And I think it's an issue of trust sometimes, because I think you're so used to micromanaging your people and you're so used to keeping an eye on them that suddenly the fact that you can't keep an eye on them, that they're not working while sitting at home. But I think to your point, are you really ready to take that agile working to the next level is what you want to think about it. And I think if you really want to take it to the next level, I think strategizing around it is a really important thing, because I think everything, if it's strategized and implemented correctly, I think the failures are lesser. So I believe that, a strategy around this, before you put a policy together, I think it's nice to bring your top leaders into a room, perhaps in a meeting, brainstorm, come up with a strategy and see what works for your organization, because what works for one may not work for the other. So you do really want to make sure that whatever you implement actually works for the culture that you have in your organization and works for you and your staff. Would you agree with me, Poonam?
No, I think that's great. I love how you connected it. I feel like it all flows. I think the final takeaway, I think, Ferozi, if I can say this, because we've had so many conversations about this, we both genuinely believe that you have to do what's right for your business. Now, every organization is jumping and feeling the pressure. It's almost like peer pressure, and it's absolutely normal. It's something we have innately to be in the crowd. But I think for us, it's be different. Really take a step back and really think, what is it that my business really needs? So a real opportunity to really challenge yourself and think and be different.
True. All right, so let's move on, unless anyone else has.
No, I think that's fine. I think we won't really spend too much time on this slide, but I really love some of the engagement we're having on the chat. A lot of people agreeing with what's being said. Please do share more if there's anything that's been said, anything that you're taking away. But what we wanted to just highlight for you is a couple of things that we really want you to take away from today. As points, as practical tips on things that you could do to support your clients, things that you might be able to do for yourself, for your own business. For me, as a people person, I think, making staff well-being a priority is going to be absolutely critical, because people are dealing with change differently. What about you, Ferozi? Anything sticking up for you?
Yeah, I think we've had this discussion. I think game changers. I think you want to identify your game changers. You want to see what are those little differences, or we call it the USPs, right? Your unique selling propositions or your unique positioning that can actually take you to the next level. So keep an eye out for those game changers that can actually help you transition into the next level. So I think for me, that's really important.
Brilliant. And also tell us, of the ones that we have here, if you have any others, is there anything that sticks out for you? Any other recommendations? We're happy to share it with the rest of the people who are on the webinar as well. So moving on, and we hope it's been great to have you and really loving the engagement so far. So thank you, everyone. We're going to open up for questions. So please feel free to share your questions with us.
Yeah, so I think there's been a lot of endorsement. There's been a lot of encouragement. People love the ideas. People like the fact that, certain topics have been covered. So that's good. I think a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah,
So
so we've had someone saying they love these ideas. Anything that's coming to your mind, anything that's triggered for you, anything you'd like to discuss more, please do hit us with your questions.
Okay, so I think we do need to give them a couple of seconds to type.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's coming in slowly but surely.
It is. It is. Okay, so I have a question over here where somebody says,
Yeah.
so how do the two of you collaborate? So.
Nice, good question.
All right. So maybe we can just reiterate the fact as to how do we collaborate, and then perhaps they can get an ideas on collaboration, perhaps. So do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm just got a call here saying thank you for this. Someone's got to leave. No worries. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Good luck with your call. Sorry, Rosie, if you don't mind starting that again.
No, I just thought there was a question on collaboration. There was a question on any thoughts on workforce planning. So we can take those questions. Let's talk about the one on the collaboration first. So somebody wants to know how we collaborate. And so perhaps we want to talk about our solution as to what we offer as collaboration. And then we move
absolutely. On. I think what we'd really love to say is that we want to try and put together, I think we put our heads together to really think about how we can disrupt the change in organizations, because I think we're disruptors by nature. We're willing to challenge the norm. So I think by nature we really want to offer something that gives organizations a real opportunity to take a step back and review and assess the needs that they have as a business. So is it a learning need? Is it a coaching need? Is it something that they need a bit of strategic consulting? So what we're trying to offer is a solution that covers all of those three areas in a way that will eventually save money. Because it's quite often, we've seen it in organizations, people buy solutions, people buy it not thinking about how it fits in. And so I think one of the things we both sign up is to really make sure that that we work with people to make sure we find the right types of solutions for them.
We offer holistic solutions, so it's end to end, and we help organizations transition into the new normal, like we call it, or with the paradigm shift that they're looking for. So I think there are a lot more questions coming in. We need to start answering. So any thoughts on workforce planning? Poonam, do you want to take that one?
So I'll be wanting to know a little bit more about what you mean about workforce planning. So for me, I guess it starts with HR. So get close with your HR, really start looking at mapping your organization. What's the structure going to look like now? What's it going to look like over the next few months, the next year? And really start thinking about ring fencing those roles that are absolutely critical. So these are the first few thoughts. But if anything comes to mind, I will share. How about you, Rosie? Anything coming to your mind?
I think if I look at workforce planning, I can't emphasize enough, it's about talent management. So how do you incorporate talent within your workforce? And then how do you make sure that you strengthen your workforce through a proper plan or a strategy or a policy or whatever it might be that works for you and your company? So you're right. I think we need to know a little bit more. I think there's another question. I don't understand what that is, but it says, who should stay, who should leave? So I don't know what that means.
I think maybe it's linked to the workforce planning question. So deciding who should stay and who should leave. I think I would almost challenge you back, because do they need to leave is the first question. Do they really need to leave? Really think about other solutions that are in place, whether it's furloughing or independent. And if they do really need to leave, are they leaving temporarily? Is that role still going to exist? Does that role still need to exist in your organization? So really thinking more than just that person, really thinking about the role's position in the business is kind of one of the first few things that come to mind. I'm just conscious we've got 2 minutes, and then we've had another question on our view on the salary cuts across companies.
Yes.
Should you manage, who should manage this, HR or leaders? Should leaders set up and take the hit on behalf of the staff? Oh, I love this. I love the passion there. So I certainly am a firm believer that the cuts should be the highest from the top first. If that means that you can keep people in jobs, and if it means that the leaders need to do their part and take a lower salary for a point, I really do feel like that's the way to go. In terms of who should manage this, I really do think it's a partnership. HR needs to be front and center in supporting the leader and making sure that they're asking them, are closer to the business than ever before right now. But I definitely think there's an education piece with leaders as well, to be really clear with their HR on what they need. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I have an example to share. So I'm not going to name a company, but I know of a company where when they were going through a crux just at the beginning of COVID, and they were very clear that they didn't want to fire anybody because they really appreciated, the people's dedication and the time and effort and everything that they had built, that contributed to build the organization. So what they decided is they actually decided to give leave without pay. And they decided to give a longer, so it's about strategy, right? So they said, rather than 1 month, we are going to give you 3 months or 4 months or 5 months leave without pay. And people who wanted to, spend time with their family, it was more like an extended leave. And so people in the leadership level, who had the money, who had the comfort of the finance in the account and wanted just more time with their families, actually opted in. And they actually opted in to, take a 4 month or 5 month leave without pay, where they could spend more time with their families and stuff like that. And that actually helped the organization transition without actually having job cuts. So
yes.
I think it's about a strategy, right? How do you actually come up with something that will help your staff?
Brilliant. So we're going to close because I'm conscious that we have reached our 1 hour point. So hopefully you can stay for a minute or two. Maybe you can let me know on the chat if you need to leave. Don't worry. Absolutely understand. But we really wanted you to take something away from today. So one of the questions on the screen, you don't need to necessarily share it with us, but what I'd really like you to do is to just take a minute and really think about what's the one action that you're going to take after this webinar, and by when. So think about that, really think about what it is that, related to your strategic people insights, really thinking about strategy. What's the one thing that what's the one action you'll be taking after this, and by when? So we'll leave that with you. And finally, because I think we are always glass half full people, we'd like to leave you with this quote, which is from an article in the World Economic Forum. And I think Firuzi and I, we both sign up to this, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We firmly believe that we will come out of this stronger.
Stronger, wiser,
wiser. Yeah.
The resilience.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Is the buzzword now.
Definitely. So we really want you to believe that this can happen. It just requires a little bit of a shift in the way in which we do business, the way in which we work with our people. And I really do feel like it could happen. And to end, I guess what we'll do is, please connect with us. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciated having you with us. This is our sort of social media. We're on various different platforms. So connect with us, get in touch with us. If something comes on you afterwards, absolutely, please do. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us today. Take care.
Thank you, all of you. Thanks for joining, and thank you for your time. Take care. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.